Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in Freshman English, and we now turn back to Poetry Collection number 1, and the final poem in that collection, number 1, on page 627, William Wordsworth's classic, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. Let's jump back to page 619 for just a second to pick up our biography information. Notice your dates here, 1770 to 1850. Wordsworth, born in England's rural Lake District in 1798, he and fellow poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge published lyrical ballads, poems that use simple language to exalt everyday life. Emphasizing nature and the imagination, Wordsworth ushered in the age of Romanticism. Put it in your notes that in your senior year, we will spend a lot of time with this poet in our British literature study as seniors. Let's take a look at this little poem. Let's read it. And then let's talk a little bit about maybe what's going on here. I wandered lonely as a cloud. By the way, I'm on 627. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 sigh at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not be but be gay in such a jocund company. Page 628. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Now, we should point out right away at 3A, if you followed any of my lectures at the beginning of our time together in the Intro to 303 lectures on LearnStrong.net, we, of course, did the famous Wordsworth poem, My Heart Leaps Up When I Behold a Rainbow in the Sky. The child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each stretch by natural piety. That's the same writer that we're reading now. Let's say 3 things really quickly in preparation for our study of this poem. 1. Wordsworth loves to look at the simple experiences of nature, a rainbow, a field of daffodils. Okay. And he loves to make some philosophic observation out of a simple observation. Okay? I like rainbows, the child is father of the man. I saw daffodils, we'll get to what will be that implication. Number 2, notice that this poem begins by him saying, I went for a walk. I wandered, lonely as a cloud, and I saw this thing, amazing sight. And it had some kind of significance for me later. He will talk about this, Wordsworth, in his famous essay from Lyrical Ballads, and he will call it Emotions Recollected in Tranquility. It's an interesting phrase, write it down. Emotions recollected in tranquility. What does that mean? Well, you have an experience, and then you think about that experience later, and it for you serves as a powerful reminder of what life is all about. We'll get to the philosophic implications of the poem in a second. Finally, number 3, notice that the word bliss in the very end is used, happiness, of solitude, and the idea of the inward eye. So we're going to have this notion that there's actually 2 different kinds of sight. Outsight, I see you, you see me. Insight, our classic word here is perspicacity, the ability to see something. Now, insight doesn't mean that you see back into your brain. No. Insight means understanding. So let's take a look now at this poem and play games with all 3 of these observations. Notice, we start. He says, I went out and I went for a walk. But anybody can say that. Instead, he calls it, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills. And when all at once, let's put it in our notes as this, it's an epiphany. It's an insight. It's an instant insight. Here he is walking. He comes around the corner. The beautiful sea out beyond. Remember, he lives in England, so he can see this kind of thing. The beautiful sea out beyond. And all of a sudden, there's this field, incredible field of daffodils. And you can already jot down at 3B, what's the most amazing sight in nature you ever saw? If, for example, where we live, you take drives into the mountains in the late spring, and all of a sudden you come up over a hill, and the whole field of wildflowers. And that moment you see it for the first time, you go, oh, it's so unbelievably beautiful. Or maybe it's a sunset, or maybe it's a sunrise. Maybe it is the ocean or something. Here for him, it's this field. He says, a host of golden daffodils beside the lake, notice his prepositions, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Of course, you've got the repetition. You've also got the rhyme scheme going on here between trees and breeze. Notice how this poem is very simple. Can we say this out loud? Very simple language. But notice the break. And now he's going to begin to talk about these daffodils. Of course, they give you a picture of daffodils on page 626, which does beg an interesting question in 3B. What is your favorite flower? If you were to see a whole bunch of a single flower together, what would it be for you? Jot it down really quickly at 3B. For some people, daffodils are the most beautiful of flowers. For other people, it's roses or daisies or whatever. For him here, it's daffodils. Notice he says it. Continuous as the stars that shine. He says the flowers looked like the stars and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay, out as far 10,000 saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. We're personifying the idea that flowers can actually dance, right? And then the waves beside them dance. So you've got lots and lots of dancing going on here. Of course, dancing is words of joy or bliss. We're going to get to the joy or bliss part, right? In other words, this is a powerfully happy image for him, right? Keep going. But they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay. And here, gay just simply means happy. In such a jocund, that means cheerful or happy, company. I gazed, gaze means watched, and gazed. But notice on page 628, but little thought, this is the movement, away from the simple to the complex, from the simple observation to a more philosophic observation. But little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. Colon. Do you see it? In other words, he's going to say something now very interesting. Let's put it in our notes. He says, we have this interesting stuff that happens to us, where we stumble onto something in nature. We look at it and we go, whoa, that's really beautiful. But it doesn't occur to us there will be something else that comes along with that insight. Something else that will be profound. Look at the next one. For oft, this means often, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood. In other words, I'm thinking. They, the daffodils, flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Now let's make an observation or two at level 2A. This is some possible messages here for ourselves. One, the force, the beauty, the power of nature, when appreciated, can help one get through those nasty, pensive moods. In other words, it can in some way alleviate the bad stuff of your life, to have the experience of something beautiful in your life. Number two, the observation is simply this. All you need in your life are a few good memories. A few good memories. And they can get you through a lot of bad stuff. Right? Which is obviously, as 3 here and a 3B in a second, going to beg the question, what is the one memory that gets you through the rough stuff of your life? What is that for you? For him, it's something as simple as daffodils. Of course, let's jump to 2B. Daffodils become a symbol. S-Y-M-B-O-L. A symbol. They represent something. What do they represent for you? Some people will say, some students will say, well, they represent dreams, as we were talking about earlier. Some students will say they represent happiness and joy, just like the rainbow in his other poem, My Heart Leaps Up When I Behold a Rainbow in the Sky, right? Something that can kind of help get you through. Notice as well we have some rhyme scheme happening in this poem in the last 2 lines of that first stanza. Notice the rhythm. Look at the last lines on 628. I mean, I could do this with the entire poem, but I'll just show this one to you. I can read it 2 ways. Watch this. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. That's one way to read it. Or I can read it this way. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Ba-bum, ba-bum, that's an iambic foot, that stress on stress. Ba-bum, 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 right? You see it? Okay? Notice, ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. We've got a collection of 4 of those together, right? Okay? That notion then of intentional rhythm can kind of make this poem have a certain kind of rocking motion. Remember, what is it? How does it work? Rocking motion, which will play the game of the 2 very things that he saw, which were rocking and dancing. Namely, flowers in a field, dancing with the wind, and of course the waves behind that. You can kind of picture this in your imagination, right? At 3a, we've already mentioned Wordsworth's other classic little text, My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. What is the text for you that plays the game best of the appreciation of the beauty of nature? That teaches you how beautiful and important nature is? What is the most beautiful picture of nature you've ever seen? Jot that one down. What is the video game that emphasizes the beauty of nature? And the importance of aesthetics, and the importance of seeing beautiful things, and holding on to those things. Your capacity to have memories. Let's jump to 3b. What is for you the most profound memory that gets you through really crummy stuff? Right now, for example, if I were to ask you, what's the one memory that helps you when things are going bad? Can I ask it this way? What is your daffodils scene? What is the thing that allows you to kind of become reflective in that inward eye? When you're all alone and you're maybe a little bit down and life isn't going very well for you, what is that moment for you that you can say, well, at least I have this in my life? There's an interesting insight as well that says, when you are having great experiences, you should maybe tell yourself to try to remember those experiences, to look with fondness on those experiences. Let's finish now by asking this question. We finish now with poetry collection number 1. All of the poems that we've studied together. Can you jot down a single thread that ties all of them together? In the first 2 poems, Dream Deferred and Dreams, both of those poems, of course, are focusing on the very idea, right, of dreaming and goal setting, right? In the Spondy text, Sonnet on Love 13, the idea that love is the most profound of goals and dreams. Of course, in Mistral's Rocking, that idea that both nature and a mother's love are somehow symbiotic. And then finally, this idea of I wandered lonely as a cloud. Daffodils allow me to have some experience of a profound understanding of something happy and joy. Some of you will say that the easy way to combine all of these together is to see that all of the poems have something to do with dreams or hopes or goals. Some way to try and see beyond the pain of life, right, to something better. The idea that if you can only hold on to something powerful, a memory of a kind, you can get through. Remember back to Langston Hughes's Dreams. You can get through a lot of bad stuff in your life if you have a way to hold on to it. Well, there you go, an introduction to a number of poems and poets in Poetry Collection number 1. I hope that the study has challenged you. Thank you.